Far away, past the light of 1,000 known stars, there was a place called the Silent Fields. It was empty space, no planets, no suns, only cold, black darkness, and one dead star that no longer gave light. This place was watched by an old space station called Vantage Point 7. It belonged to the Council of Stars, a group of powerful alien races that had ruled the galaxy for over 10,000 years. The Council had seen empires rise. The Council had seen empires fall. Nothing surprised them anymore. But tonight something did. A young alien officer named Threll sat at his station, watching quiet screens. He was tired. His shift was almost over. He was thinking about food, not danger. The Silent Fields never had anything interesting happen. Nobody came here. Nobody wanted to. Then his screen blinked. Threll sat up straight. A small red light appeared on his monitor. Then it disappeared. Then it came back. "Sensors are acting strange," he said to himself. He tapped a few buttons. The system asked him to confirm what he was seeing. He confirmed it. The screen showed one word: unknown. Threll frowned. Unknown was not a word his systems used often. His scanners could read almost anything in the galaxy. They could detect a ship's engine type, its metal, its crew size, even its weapons power, from thousands of kilometers away. But this object gave no answers. No metal signature, no engine heat, no crew life signs. It was just there. Threll called his supervisor. "Sir, I think we have something near the dead star. I can't identify it." His supervisor, an older alien named Doss, walked over slowly, not worried yet. "Probably space debris," Doss said. "Old asteroid, maybe." "Asteroids don't hold a perfect position for 6 hours," Threll said. "Sir, it hasn't moved." Doss looked at the screen. His face changed. "Send a probe," Doss said quietly. "Now." The probe took 2 hours to reach the object. When it arrived, the small robotic scanner sent back images. It was a ship. Not a large ship, not small either. It had no visible weapons, no visible engines. Its surface looked like the darkness around it, almost as if it were part of space itself. The probe's cameras struggled to even show a clear picture. The edges of the ship seemed to bend and blur like heat waves in the desert. Doss stared at the images for a long time. "Whose ship is this?" he asked. Threll checked the shape against every known design in Council records. Thousands of races, thousands of ship types. Nothing matched. Then a new alert came through. A different scanner, deep inside the ship's design, if you could call it that, picked up a faint symbol. It was small, almost hidden, near what looked like the front of the vessel. Threll zoomed in. It was a simple shape. A circle. Inside it, a small blue and green sphere. Doss's eyes went wide. "That's Earth," he whispered. "That's the human symbol." The Council of Stars had heard of humans before. Everyone had. Humans were new to galactic society, only a few decades old in terms of space travel. They came from a small, unimportant world called Earth, in a quiet corner of the galaxy. Most Council races saw them as children. Interesting, maybe. Amusing, maybe. But not powerful. Not dangerous. Humans had weak engines, average weapons, and ships that looked plain compared to Council designs. So why was a human ship sitting silently near the Silent Fields, hiding from every sensor the Council had? Doss did not like unanswered questions. He sent a report straight to the Council of Stars, the highest ruling body in known space. Within the hour, his message reached the Grand Chamber, where representatives from over 40 alien races met to decide the fate of the galaxy. The Grand Chamber was a massive room built inside a floating city called Aurelia Prime. Its ceiling was made of clear crystal, showing the stars above. Around a circular table sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Tall reptilian Voth generals, floating blue Sirions with glowing eyes, armored Dranix warriors, and dozens of others. At the head of the table sat High Speaker Mirren, an elder of the Sirion race, respected across 100 worlds for her wisdom and calm judgment. When Doss's report appeared on the main screen, silence filled the room. "A ship," said General Vorak of the Voth, his deep voice full of doubt. One ship, hiding near the silent fields, and this is worth calling an emergency meeting? It's not just any ship, Mirren said, studying the images. Our scanners could not identify it. Not its material, not its engine, not its weapons. In 10,000 years. Has that ever happened before? The room went quiet again. It hadn't. And it carries the symbol of Earth, Myron added. A murmur spread through the chamber. Humans, Vorak said, almost laughing. Impossible. Humans build simple ships. Metal and fire, nothing more. I've seen their fleet parades. Nothing to fear there. Then explain, Mirren said calmly, why their simple ship is invisible to Council technology. Nobody had an answer. Vorak, ever confident, stood up. There is a simple solution, Speaker. We summon the humans here. We ask them directly. If it is nothing, we waste an hour. If it is something... He paused. Then we learn what it is before it becomes a problem. Myron nodded slowly. Agreed. Send the summons, formally, to the Human Council. Millions of kilometers away, on a small blue-green planet called Earth, a message arrived at the United Earth Defense Command, deep inside a mountain base in a quiet part of the world. A communications officer named Sarah Chen read the message twice before calling her superior. Sir, she said, the Council of Stars wants to speak with us, officially. They're calling it an emergency summons. Her superior, Admiral James Cole, walked over and read the message himself. His face didn't change much. He had expected something like this eventually. About the Silent Fields ship? He asked. How did you know? Because that's the only ship we have out there, Cole said simply. Sarah blinked. Sir, the Council's report says their scanners couldn't identify it at all, not even the type of metal. Cole allowed himself a small, quiet smile. Good, he said. That means it's working. Word spread quickly through Earth's small but growing space defense network. The summons was official. The Council of Stars, the most powerful group in the galaxy, wanted answers from humanity. Some officers were nervous. The Council had fleets that could destroy entire planets. Humanity's fleet, by comparison, was small, newly built, still young by galactic standards. But Admiral Cole did not seem worried. He called a private meeting with a small group of top officials, people few outside the room even knew existed. This was Project Umbra, humanity's most secret program. They found the ship, Cole said, standing at the head of a plain metal table. A woman across from him, Dr. Elena Voss, the lead scientist behind Project Umbra, folded her arms. Which one? The patrol vessel near the Dead Star, the Wraith class. Elena allowed herself a small laugh. They found it? Or they noticed it was there and couldn't explain why? The second one, Cole said. Good, Elena said. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. 3 days later, a single quiet human shuttle left Earth's orbit, heading toward Aurelia Prime and the grand chamber of the Council of Stars. Inside sat one passenger, Ambassador Daniel Reyes, a calm, plainly dressed man in his 50s, chosen not because he looked powerful but because he never needed to. Daniel had been quiet the whole trip. He looked out the window at the stars, thinking about what was coming. He had been part of Project Umbra since the beginning. He knew exactly what waited in Earth's shipyards, hidden from the rest of the galaxy. He knew why the Council's scanners had failed, and he knew that today, for the first time, that secret would begin to unfold. He wasn't nervous. He was simply ready. When the shuttle arrived at Aurelia Prime, hundreds of alien eyes turned to watch it dock. The Council had gathered in numbers, curious about this meeting. Some came out of real concern. Others came simply to watch humanity be humbled. General Vorak stood near the entrance of the Grand Chamber, arms crossed, watching the small human shuttle land. Compared to Council ships, it looked almost embarrassing, small and plain, with none of the shining armor or glowing engines that Council fleets were known for. This is what worries the High Speaker, Vorak muttered to another officer beside him. A flying tin can? The officer laughed quietly. Let's hope the ambassador brought better excuses than his ship's design. They did not know that the shuttle itself was one of the least important things humanity had brought to this meeting. Daniel Reyes stepped out of the shuttle and into the massive halls of Aurelia Prime. Guards from a dozen alien races stood along the walls, watching him closely. He walked calmly, hands at his sides, showing no fear and no arrogance. He was led into the grand chamber where the council waited. High Speaker Mirren stood as he entered. Ambassador Reyes, thank you for coming. Of course, Speaker Myron, Daniel replied, his voice steady. Humanity always respects the council's summons. Vorak stepped forward before Mirren could continue. Let's not waste time with pleasantries, he said sharply. 3 days ago, our scanners detected an unidentified vessel near the silent fields. It carried Earth's symbol. Explain. Daniel nodded, unbothered by the general's tone. That would be one of our patrol ships, he said simply. A routine deep space vessel. Nothing unusual. Vorak's eyes narrowed. Nothing unusual. Our scanners could not read its hull material, could not detect an engine, could not even properly see its shape with light sensors. You call that routine? Daniel paused for a moment, as if deciding how much to say. With respect, General, he said, your scanners are built to read materials and technologies known throughout Council space. That ship is not built from anything in your records. The room went still. Then what? Mirren asked carefully. Is it built from? Daniel looked around the chamber slowly, meeting the eyes of dozens of alien leaders who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, long before humanity had even left its own solar system. You wouldn't have a word for it, he said calmly. We do. The chamber erupted into quiet, tense whispers. Council members leaned toward each other, speaking rapidly in their own languages. Vorak's face darkened with anger and suspicion. Mirren, however, remained calm, studying the human ambassador closely. That is not an answer, Ambassador, Mirren said. That is a mystery wrapped in politeness. I understand the concern, Daniel said, and I promise you, humanity has no intention of hiding anything that threatens the peace of this council. But some truths are easier shown than explained. Then show us, Vorak snapped. Prove that this ship is nothing more than a simple patrol vessel, as you claim. Or prove it is something else, and let us judge accordingly. Daniel turned to High Speaker Mirren, ignoring the general's aggressive tone. Humanity is willing to demonstrate the ship's capabilities, he said, under council supervision, at a location and time of your choosing. We only ask for one condition. And what is that? Mirren asked. Daniel's expression didn't change, but something in his voice carried quiet warning. A safe distance, he said, for your own protection. Silence fell over the grand chamber. Some council members scoffed at the warning, seeing it as arrogance from a young species trying to appear powerful. Others, more experienced, felt a small chill at how calmly the human ambassador had said those words. Not boasting, not threatening, just certain. High Speaker Mirren studied Daniel for a long moment before finally nodding. Very well, Ambassador Reyes, she said. The Council accepts your offer of demonstration. 3 days from now, at the edge of the Threll Expanse, your vessel will perform a controlled test under full Council observation. Vorak stepped forward, unwilling to let the moment end so simply. And if this so-called demonstration reveals nothing but empty promises, he said, the Council will know humanity has wasted its time and patience. Daniel met his gaze evenly. General, he said quietly, I promise you patience will not be wasted today. As the meeting ended and council members slowly filed out of the grand chamber, murmurs and questions followed Daniel every step of the way. Some races openly mocked the idea that humans, of all species, could possess anything advanced enough to trouble council scanners. Others stayed quiet, thoughtful, uncertain. High Speaker Mirren remained behind after most had left, watching Daniel prepare to return to his shuttle. Ambassador, she said, stopping him gently. May I ask you something off the formal record? Daniel turned toward her. Of course, Speaker. Are you afraid, she asked, of what may come from this demonstration, of how the council may react? Daniel considered the question carefully before answering. No, he said honestly. Not afraid. Just aware. Aware of what? He looked at her, his expression calm but serious. That today is the day the galaxy stops seeing humanity as children, he said quietly, and starts seeing us as something else. Mirren studied him for a long moment, her ancient eyes trying to read what lay beneath his calm words. And what is that? She finally asked. Daniel offered her a small, quiet smile as he turned to leave. You'll see in 3 days, he said. Back on Vantage Point 7, Threll sat once again at his station, watching the same silent, unmoving object near the dead star. 3 days remained until the demonstration. 3 days until the Council would finally understand what humanity had been quietly building in the shadows of galactic space. Threll stared at the screen, at the strange blur where the ship should have been visible, but wasn't. He didn't know it yet, but he was about to witness something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever, somewhere far away, aboard a small, unremarkable-looking human vessel drifting silently in the darkness of the silent fields. Systems quietly powered on, preparing for what was to come. The countdown had begun. 3 days passed slowly at Aurelia Prime. Across the grand chamber, and through every hallway of the floating city, one topic filled every conversation. Diplomats whispered about it in quiet corners. Guards discussed it during shift changes. Even the cleaning drones seemed to hum along corridors filled with tension. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What was humanity hiding? High Speaker Mirren spent those 3 days reviewing everything the Council had on record about Earth. It wasn't much. Humanity had only joined galactic society a few decades earlier, after a chance encounter with a passing trade convoy. Since then, they had been treated the way most young species were treated, with polite distance, mild curiosity, and quiet dismissal. Humans built simple ships. Humans used basic weapons. Humans argued a lot among themselves, yet somehow still worked together when it mattered. They were seen as a species still learning to walk, let alone run, in a galaxy full of ancient empires. But now, 3 days from a demonstration that could change everything, Myron wasn't so sure that description still fit. General Vorak, on the other hand, had spent the 3 days growing more frustrated, not less. He paced through his private quarters, reviewing old reports on humanity's fleet. Everything matched what he already knew. Standard hulls, standard engines, weapons roughly equal to a mid-level Council colony defense force. Nothing special. Nothing that should trouble Council sensors even slightly. There has to be an explanation, he muttered to his aide, a young Voth officer named Dressa. A cloaking field. A sensor glitch. Something simple. And if it isn't simple, sir? Dressa asked carefully. Vorak turned to her, his sharp reptilian eyes narrowing. Then we will deal with it, he said, as we deal with every threat. But privately, even Vorak felt a small seed of doubt growing inside him. In all his years of service, defending Council borders from pirates, rogue factions, and the occasional desperate empire, he had never once seen his sensors fail completely. Not once. Not until 3 days ago. Meanwhile, far from Aurelia Prime, deep inside a mountain base on Earth, preparations moved quickly and quietly. Admiral James Cole stood in a control room filled with screens showing ship diagnostics, star charts, and a live countdown to the demonstration. Dr. Elena Voss walked in, holding a data tablet. The Wraith is ready, she said. Systems are stable. Power core output is steady at 80%, well within safe limits for the test. Cole nodded slowly. Good. Let's keep it there. No need to show them everything on the first day. Elena smiled slightly. Careful, Admiral. That almost sounded like patience. I've learned patience the hard way, Cole replied. Building this program taught me that much. He looked over the room, filled with young engineers and officers who had spent years working on Project Umbra without a single leak, without a single mistake. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. Ambassador Reyes checked in an hour ago, Elena said. He says the Council is nervous. Vorak especially. Cole allowed himself a small, thin smile. Let them be nervous, he said. Nervous people ask better questions, and better questions lead to better understanding. And if they don't understand? Elena asked. Cole's smile faded slightly, replaced by something more serious. Then we make sure they understand what humanity is not, he said quietly. Not a threat. Not without reason. Back on Aurelia Prime, the day of the demonstration finally arrived. A large group of council ships gathered at the edge of the Threll expanse, a wide, mostly empty region of space chosen specifically for its distance from any inhabited systems. Battlecruisers from a dozen races floated in careful formation, their crews watching sensor screens with a mixture of curiosity and unease. High Speaker Myron's personal flagship, the Aurora's Grace, held position at the center of the formation, serving as the main observation point for council leaders. General Vorik stood on its bridge, arms crossed, watching the empty space ahead where the human vessel was expected to arrive. Still nothing on sensors, reported a Voth technician at the main console. No sign of the human ship. They're already late, Vorak muttered. Myron, standing calmly nearby, glanced at the ship's chronometer. They have 3 more minutes before their agreed arrival time, General. Patience. Vorik said nothing, though his tail flicked with irritation, a small habit that betrayed his growing tension. Exactly on time, a small, quiet shuttle appeared on long-range sensors, approaching from Earth's direction. It was the same shuttle that had carried Ambassador Reyes to Aurelia Prime 3 days earlier. But this time, something followed behind it. At first, the Council's sensors picked up almost nothing, just a faint distortion in space like heat rising off warm pavement. Then, slowly, an object began to take shape, not through normal sensor detection, but through simple visual tracking as it grew closer. It was the same ship from the Silent Fields. The Wraith-class vessel moved silently through space, its dark surface seeming to swallow the light around it rather than reflect it. It was neither large nor especially imposing in size, roughly comparable to a Council mid-sized cruiser. But something about its presence made even experienced Council officers feel uneasy, a quiet, wrong feeling, like standing near the edge of a very deep hole in the dark. There, Vorak said, pointing at the main view screen. That's it. Myron studied the approaching vessel closely. Our sensors still can't identify its hull material, she said, or its engine type, even with it in plain visual range. How is that possible? Dressa asked from nearby. Nobody answered her. Nobody had an answer. Ambassador Reyes's shuttle docked briefly with the Aurora's Grace, and moments later, he was escorted onto the bridge, standing calmly before High Speaker Myron and General Vorak. Ambassador, Myron greeted him. Your vessel has arrived. As promised, Daniel replied. Vorak stepped closer, studying him carefully. Your ship still troubles our sensors even now, sitting directly before us. I imagine it does, Daniel said simply. Explain, Vorak demanded. Daniel considered his words carefully before speaking. The hull of that ship isn't made from any material found naturally in this galaxy's common elements, he said. It's constructed using a substance most species only theorize about, but never successfully harness. Myron's eyes narrowed slightly. And what substance is that? Daniel met her gaze evenly. Dark matter, he said. The bridge went completely silent. Every alien officer present turned to look at him, some in confusion, others in open disbelief. Impossible, Vorak said flatly. Dark matter cannot be shaped. It cannot be controlled. Every scientific study across 100 worlds has confirmed this. It simply doesn't interact with normal matter in any usable way. That was true, Daniel said calmly. Until it wasn't. Myron studied him carefully. You're telling us humanity has found a way to manipulate dark matter? To build with it? Not just build with it, Daniel said. To harness it. To power our ships with it. To shape it into hulls that your sensors, built to read normal matter, simply cannot properly perceive. Vorak let out a short, disbelieving laugh. A convenient story, Ambassador. Easy to claim, difficult to prove. Daniel nodded slightly. Which is exactly why we agreed to this demonstration, Mirren turned to her tactical officer. Prepare the target vessel. Nearby, an old decommissioned council warship, stripped of its crew and any valuable systems, floated silently in space, positioned specifically for this test. It was an outdated model, no longer useful for anything but scrap, chosen carefully so that its destruction, if it happened, would raise no political complications. Ambassador, Mirren said, you may proceed with your demonstration. Daniel nodded and turned toward a small communicator on his wrist. Wraith 1, this is Reyes. You are cleared for demonstration fire. Target has been designated. Proceed at your discretion. A calm voice responded from the tiny speaker. Copy, Ambassador, beginning sequence. Vorak leaned toward Myron. We should move to a greater distance, he said quietly. If this proves to be as dangerous as the Ambassador implies. Already adjusting position, Mirren said, giving quiet orders to her helm officer. The Aurora's Grace, along with the rest of the Council fleet, moved slowly backward, increasing the distance between themselves and the target vessel. Aboard the Wraith-class ship, a small crew of 3 humans sat calmly at their stations. The ship's interior was surprisingly simple: plain metal walls, soft lighting, and quiet, efficient consoles. Nothing about it suggested the strange, sensor-defying power hidden within its hull. The ship's captain, a calm young officer named Lieutenant Mara Kimura, checked her readings one final time. Power core stable, she said. Dark matter containment steady at 75%. Target locked, reported her weapons officer, a quiet man named Ensign Rahim Patel. Mara glanced at the live feed showing the distant Council fleet, watching from a careful distance. She could imagine the tension aboard those alien ships, the uncertainty, the fear hidden behind calm exteriors. Let's not give them a reason to panic, she said softly. Controlled shot, minimum output. Understood, Rahim replied. Ready when you are. Mara took a slow breath. Fire. Back aboard the Aurora's Grace, every alien eye watched the main view screen closely. There was no visible beam, no flash of light, no sound of any kind, not even through sensor amplification. For a brief moment, absolutely nothing appeared to happen at all. Vorak frowned. Is this some kind of joke? He began to say. Then the old Council warship simply stopped existing. There was no explosion, no fire, no wreckage scattering through space, as would normally happen when a vessel was destroyed by conventional weapons. The ship was simply there one moment, and gone the next, as if it had crumbled into dust and dissolved silently into the darkness of space. The Council bridge fell into stunned silence. What just happened? Dressa whispered, staring at the empty space where the target vessel had been only seconds before. Sensor technicians rapidly checked their readings, searching for any trace of the destroyed ship, any wreckage, any residual energy signature, anything at all. Nothing, one of them finally reported, his voice shaking slightly. No debris, no radiation, no energy trace. It's like the ship was simply erased. Vorak stared at the empty space, his earlier confidence completely gone, replaced by something closer to quiet shock. Mirren turned slowly toward Ambassador Reyes, who stood calmly nearby, watching the reactions around him with a patient, unreadable expression. Ambassador, she said carefully, what exactly did we just witness? Daniel considered his answer for a moment before speaking. A minimum output demonstration, he said simply. Nothing more. Minimum output? Vorak repeated, his voice sharp with disbelief. That weapon erased an entire warship without so much as a visible energy discharge, and you call that minimum? Yes, Daniel replied honestly. The bridge fell silent again, this time filled with a different kind of tension, not confusion, but genuine fear. Mirren studied Daniel closely, searching his calm expression for any sign of exaggeration or deception. She found none. How is this possible? She asked quietly. Dark matter interacts so weakly with normal matter that even our most advanced research stations struggle to detect its presence, let alone weaponize it. That's true, for conventional dark matter interactions, Daniel said. But humanity discovered a method to force a much stronger interaction under very controlled conditions. It took decades of research and no small number of failures before we succeeded. And you kept this secret? Vorak demanded. From the entire council? Daniel met his gaze evenly. We kept it quiet, he corrected. There's a difference. Mirren raised a hand slightly, calming the rising tension on her bridge. Ambassador, I understand humanity's caution. New technology, particularly something this powerful, is often kept guarded until fully understood. But the Council must ask, directly and clearly, what is humanity's intention with this technology? Daniel paused, choosing his words with obvious care. To never need to use it, he said finally. Vorak scoffed. A convenient answer. It's the honest one, Daniel replied, his calm tone unwavering. Humanity did not develop dark matter weapons because we sought conquest, General. We developed them because, early in our history among the stars, we encountered a species that saw our unfamiliarity as weakness and our peaceful nature as an invitation for exploitation. The bridge grew quiet again, this time listening intently. That encounter taught humanity a difficult lesson, Daniel continued. That peace, however sincerely offered, is rarely respected unless it is paired with the ability to defend itself. We did not build this technology to threaten the galaxy. We built it so that no one could threaten us again. Mirren considered his words carefully, her ancient eyes reflecting quiet thought. And yet, she said slowly, you chose to reveal this technology now, to the Council, rather than continuing to keep it hidden, because hiding it any longer was no longer possible, Daniel admitted. Your scanners detected our patrol vessel. Denying its existence or lying about its capabilities would have only deepened suspicion and possibly led to far greater misunderstanding. So you chose honesty, Mirren said, over concealment. We chose honesty, Daniel confirmed, because humanity does not wish to be the galaxy's next great threat. We wish to be understood, not feared. But we also will not pretend to be weaker than we are, simply to make others more comfortable. Vorak studied the human ambassador for a long moment, his earlier hostility slowly giving way to something more complicated, respect, mixed uneasily with lingering suspicion. How many of these ships exist? He asked finally. Daniel met his gaze steadily. That, he said, is a conversation for another day, General. Vorak's jaw tightened, clearly unsatisfied with the answer, but Mirren raised a hand gently before he could press further. The Council has learned enough for today, she said calmly. This is a matter that will require careful thought and careful discussion among all Council members, not hurried decisions made in the heat of shock. She turned to Daniel. Ambassador, thank you for your honesty today. The Council will reconvene shortly to discuss what we have witnessed and what it means for humanity's place among us. Daniel nodded respectfully. Humanity looks forward to that discussion, Speaker Mirren. We do not seek conflict, we seek understanding. As the meeting drew to a close and Council ships slowly began their return journey to Aurelia Prime, Daniel stood quietly near the observation window of his shuttle, watching the stars pass by. Behind him, aboard the Wraith-class vessel, Lieutenant Mara Kimura reviewed the mission's final report with quiet satisfaction. Demonstration complete, she said softly to her small crew. No panic, no conflict, just understanding, hopefully. Ensign Rahim Patel glanced toward the distant lights of the retreating Council fleet. You think they believe us? That we don't want to fight? Mara considered the question carefully before answering. I think, she said slowly, we just gave them a lot to think about. Back aboard the Aurora's Grace, General Vorak stood alone on the bridge long after most officers had left, staring silently at the empty space where the destroyed warship had once floated. For the first time in his long military career, he felt something he rarely allowed himself to feel. Uncertainty. The humans, a species he had dismissed as simple and unthreatening only days earlier, had just demonstrated a weapon capable of erasing a warship without a trace. using a power source every scientist in the galaxy considered untouchable. And they had called it minimum output. Vorak clenched his fists slowly, staring into the darkness of space. "What else?" he whispered quietly to himself. "Are they hiding?" Far above him, unseen and unheard, High Speaker Mirren stood in her private quarters, gazing out at the same stars, her thoughts equally troubled. Humanity had come to the Council today not as students seeking guidance, nor as beggars seeking protection, but as equals, calm, controlled, and quietly powerful. And for the first time in the Council's long, proud history, that realization left her, and every member present, completely speechless. News of the demonstration spread across the galaxy faster than anyone in the Council expected. Within hours, every major species with access to Council communication networks had heard some version of the story. A human warship, a weapon made from dark matter, a Council battleship erased without a trace. By the time the story reached the outer colonies, it had already grown into something larger than the truth. Some versions claimed humanity had destroyed an entire fleet. Others whispered that Earth had declared secret war on the galaxy. High Speaker Myron spent the following days trying to calm the panic, issuing careful statements that confirmed only what was verified: a single controlled test, a single obsolete vessel, no casualties, no act of aggression. But statements rarely travel as fast as fear, and fear had already taken hold across dozens of worlds. On Aurelia Prime, the Grand Chamber prepared for an emergency full session, the first of its kind in over a decade. Every Council race would be represented. Every voice would be heard. And at the center of it all stood one question that no one could yet answer with certainty. Was humanity a threat or merely misunderstood? General Vorak arrived early to the session, his mind still troubled by what he had witnessed days earlier. He had spent every spare hour since the demonstration reviewing sensor logs, weapon calculations, anything that might explain how a species so young, so seemingly ordinary, had developed something so far beyond Council technology. He found no satisfying answers, only more questions. His aide Dressa approached quietly as he took his seat. "Sir, opinion among the fleet commanders is divided," she said. "Some believe we should demand humanity surrender the technology for the safety of the Council." "And the others?" Vorak asked. "Others believe demanding anything from a species capable of that kind of power would be unwise," Dressa said carefully. Vorak's jaw tightened. He hated admitting it, even to himself. But the second group was not entirely wrong. The Grand Chamber slowly filled with representatives from every corner of Council space. Tall Voth generals, floating Kyrian elders, armored Dranix warriors, quiet, calculating Etherian diplomats. Even smaller, lesser-known species sent representatives, eager not to be left out of a decision that could reshape galactic power for generations. High Speaker Myron called the session to order. 3 days ago, she began, her voice calm but carrying clearly across the chamber, humanity demonstrated a weapon capable of destroying a Council vessel using dark matter, a resource every scientific authority in this galaxy considered impossible to harness. The Council must now decide how to respond to this new reality. Murmurs spread through the chamber before she even finished speaking. "Response?" called out a sharp voice from the Dranix delegation. "The only proper response is containment. A species with that kind of power cannot be allowed to act outside Council oversight." "Easy to say," Mirren replied evenly. "Difficult to enforce against a power we do not yet understand." Ambassador Daniel Reyes sat quietly near the center of the chamber, having been invited to observe and answer questions if the Council required. He remained calm throughout the growing debate, watching alien leaders argue among themselves about humanity's fate as though he weren't sitting right there. Finally, Myron turned to him directly. "Ambassador, the Council has many questions. Perhaps it is time you answered some of them yourself." Daniel stood slowly, meeting the eyes of dozens of powerful alien leaders without hesitation. "I will answer what I can," he said simply. General Vorak wasted no time. "How many of these dark matter vessels does humanity possess?" That information remains classified, Daniel replied calmly. Convenient, Vorak muttered. Necessary, Daniel corrected. Would any species in this chamber openly reveal the full size of their strategic defenses to outsiders, especially so soon after first demonstrating a new capability? Nobody answered him. Nobody could, honestly. A Sarian elder spoke next, her voice calm but firm. Ambassador, humanity claims this technology exists purely for defense, yet how can the Council trust such a claim without proof? Daniel considered the question carefully. Proof, he said, is difficult to offer for intentions, Elder. But consider this. If humanity intended conquest, we would not have revealed this technology through a controlled demonstration, under Council supervision, following proper diplomatic channels. We would have simply used it. The chamber grew quiet at that thought. Humanity has had the ability to reveal this weapon far more dramatically. Daniel continued. We chose transparency instead, specifically because we understand that trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild. We would rather earn your trust slowly than seize your fear quickly. Vorak remained unconvinced, his suspicion deeply rooted after years of military service, where caution had kept him and his fleet alive many times. Words are easy, Ambassador, he said. Actions carry more weight. The Council requires more than diplomatic reassurance. We require a full technical inspection of your vessel and a complete accounting of your dark matter reserves. The chamber fell silent, watching Daniel's reaction closely. Daniel remained calm, though his tone carried a quiet firmness that hadn't been present before. General, with respect, humanity will not surrender full technical details of a defensive technology developed independently, without external assistance, simply because the Council feels uneasy about its existence. Then perhaps, Vorak said sharply, the Council should consider this technology a threat, rather than negotiate as though humanity holds equal standing among us. The room tensed immediately, several delegates shifting uncomfortably at the General's blunt words. Myron raised a hand firmly, silencing the rising tension before it could escalate further. General Vorak, threats and demands will accomplish nothing here, except perhaps convincing humanity that hostility, rather than honesty, was the wiser path. Vorak clenched his jaw but said nothing further, though his expression remained hard. Myron turned back to Daniel. Ambassador, the Council understands humanity's caution regarding full disclosure. However, surely you understand our own caution, faced with a previously unknown power capable of such destruction. Daniel nodded slowly. I understand it completely, Speaker Myron. Which is why humanity is prepared to offer something more meaningful than words alone. The chamber leaned in slightly, curious. A second demonstration, Daniel said, this time allowing Council scientists limited observation access under controlled conditions, sufficient to confirm the general principles behind our technology, without revealing sensitive engineering details that could be misused. Vorak narrowed his eyes. A limited demonstration proves nothing beyond what we've already witnessed. On the contrary, Daniel replied, it would allow your scientists to verify firsthand that this technology functions exactly as we've claimed, purely defensive in its current application, without hidden offensive capabilities designed for unprovoked aggression. Myron considered this proposal carefully. Several other delegates murmured quietly among themselves, weighing the offer. Finally, a floating Sarian scientist named Dr. Aleth spoke up. Speaker Myron, if the humans are willing to allow limited scientific observation, it would provide valuable data, far more than continued speculation and rumor currently circulating throughout the galaxy. Myron nodded slowly. Very well, the Council accepts humanity's offer of a second, scientifically observed demonstration. Ambassador Reyes, please coordinate details with our science division immediately. Daniel bowed slightly. It will be done, Speaker. 2 days later, a small team of Council scientists, led by Dr. Aleth, arrived aboard a modest human research vessel stationed just outside Earth's solar system. Admiral Cole and Dr. Elena Voss personally greeted them, offering careful hospitality mixed with equally careful boundaries regarding what information could, and could not, be shared. Welcome aboard the Meridian, Elena said, guiding the alien scientists through the ship's clean, simple corridors. We've prepared a controlled test area nearby, along with sensor access sufficient to verify our previous demonstration's results. Dr. Aleth studied his surroundings with clear curiosity. Your vessel appears remarkably ordinary, Dr. Voss, he said. No unusual technology visible anywhere. Elena smiled faintly. That's rather the point, Doctor. Humanity has learned that flashy appearances rarely reflect true capability. The demonstration proceeded much as before, a controlled dark matter discharge, precisely calibrated, aimed at a small harmless asteroid selected specifically for scientific observation purposes. Council sensors, carefully monitored by Dr. Aleth's team, confirmed the same troubling results as before, a complete disintegration of solid matter, without any detectable energy signature matching known physics. Fascinating, Aleth muttered, reviewing his readings closely. The interaction defies every established theory regarding dark matter's fundamental properties. We had similar reactions early in our research, Elena admitted. It required decades of failed experiments before we achieved stable, controlled results. Aleth glanced at her curiously. May I ask, Doctor, what motivated humanity to pursue such difficult, seemingly impossible research in the first place? Elena's expression grew momentarily distant, thoughtful. Necessity, she said quietly. Humanity learned, early in its history among the stars, that survival sometimes requires solutions others consider impossible. Meanwhile, aboard the Meridian's command deck, Admiral Cole received an urgent message from Earth Central Command. He read it quickly, his expression growing serious. Problem, Admiral? Asked a nearby officer. Possibly, Cole replied. Intelligence reports increased military movement among several Council factions, particularly Voth forces under General Vorek's command. Do you think they're preparing for conflict? The officer asked, concern clear in his voice. Cole considered the question carefully. I think, he said slowly, General Vorak remains unconvinced by diplomacy alone. Some leaders only trust strength they can measure directly. And if he decides to test that strength? Cole's expression hardened slightly. Then humanity will remind him calmly and clearly why testing us would be a mistake. Back aboard Aurelia Prime, General Vorak studied updated reports regarding humanity's demonstrated capabilities, his frustration deepening with each passing hour. Dressa entered quietly holding a data tablet. Sir, Dr. Aleth's preliminary report has arrived from the human research vessel. And? Vorak asked impatiently. The data confirms humanity's previous claims, Dressa said carefully. The demonstrated technology appears purely defensive in application, at least based on current observations. Vorak's frown deepened. Appears defensive, he repeated skeptically. Convenient wording, designed to leave room for doubt. Sir, with respect, Dressa said carefully. Perhaps the doubt exists because we wish it to, rather than because the evidence truly supports it. Vorak turned sharply toward her, clearly displeased by the suggestion, but after a long, tense moment, his anger slowly faded into something closer to reluctant reflection. Perhaps, he admitted quietly, or perhaps caution has simply become instinct, after centuries of watching supposedly peaceful species reveal darker intentions once they gained sufficient strength. That evening, High Speaker Mirren requested a private meeting with Ambassador Reyes, away from the tension and politics of the Grand Chamber. They met in a quiet garden terrace overlooking Aurelia Prime's shimmering skyline, stars visible clearly through the city's crystal dome above. Ambassador, Mirren began, the Council remains divided regarding humanity's intentions. Some fear you, others simply distrust what they don't yet understand. That's understandable, Daniel replied honestly. Fear often follows power, especially power revealed suddenly without prior warning. Myron studied him closely. May I ask you something personal, Ambassador? Not as a representative of Earth, but simply as yourself? Daniel nodded. Of course. Do you believe humanity deserves the Council's trust? Daniel considered the question seriously before answering. "I believe humanity has earned the opportunity to prove itself trustworthy," he said finally. "Trust itself must be built over time, through consistent action, not granted instantly through words alone." Myron nodded slowly, appreciating his honesty. "A wise perspective, Ambassador. Perhaps wiser than the Council currently deserves, given how quickly some among us reached for suspicion rather than patience." As their conversation continued quietly beneath the stars, neither Myron nor Daniel noticed a small, discreet listening device hidden nearby, planted earlier that day by an agent loyal to General Vorak, desperate for any information that might justify his growing suspicion of humanity's true intentions. Far away, aboard a private Voth vessel hidden just outside Aurelia Prime's main sensor range, Vorak listened silently to the recorded conversation, his expression unreadable. "They speak of trust," he muttered quietly to himself, while carefully avoiding every question regarding the true scale of their power. He clenched his fist slowly, staring out at the distant lights of Aurelia Prime. "Very well," he whispered. "If words won't reveal their true strength, perhaps circumstances will." Quietly, deliberately, Vorak began planning a far more dangerous test of humanity's claims, one that would push the boundaries of diplomacy and force Earth to reveal exactly how far its new power truly extended. 3 weeks passed after the second demonstration, and for a while an uneasy calm settled over Council space. Dr. Aleth's report circulated quietly among trusted scientists, confirming humanity's claims without offering any dangerous new details. Most Council leaders, cautious but pragmatic, decided to wait, watch, and gather more information before deciding how to treat this strange new neighbor. General Vorak, however, was not most Council leaders. Since overhearing Mirren's private conversation with Ambassador Reyes, he had grown quietly obsessed with uncovering the true scale of humanity's power. He did not believe, even for a moment, that a single patrol ship represented the full extent of Earth's capability. No species revealed its complete strength so early, so easily. There had to be more, hidden somewhere, waiting. So Vorak began making careful, deniable arrangements of his own. Deep within Voth territory, far from Council oversight, Vorak met privately with a small group of loyal officers aboard an unmarked scout vessel. The room was dim, lit only by soft blue emergency lighting, chosen deliberately to avoid drawing attention from nearby patrols. "We cannot simply ask humanity to reveal their full strength," Vorak said quietly. "They will refuse, as they have already refused the full Council." "Then what do you propose, General?" asked Commander Issa, his most trusted officer. Vorak studied a star chart displayed before him, tracing a careful path along the edge of neutral space, close to, but not technically inside, territory humanity had claimed as their own. "A patrol," he said simply. "Unofficial, unaffiliated with the Council. If we happen to encounter additional human vessels along this route, we will gather what information we can, quietly, without triggering open conflict." Issa hesitated. "General, if this is discovered, the Council will see it as a direct provocation, possibly even an act of aggression." "It will not be discovered," Vorak said firmly, "as long as everyone in this room understands the importance of discretion." Meanwhile, aboard the Meridian, still stationed near Earth's solar system, Dr. Elena Voss reviewed sensor logs with growing concern. A pattern of unusual Voth ship movements had appeared along Council border regions, unofficial, unregistered, careful to avoid direct detection, but not careful enough to escape humanity's own quiet monitoring systems. She brought her concerns immediately to Admiral Cole. "Voth scout vessels," she said, showing him the data. "Small numbers moving cautiously near our declared border space. Nothing official through Council channels." Cole studied the readings carefully, his expression hardening. "Vorak," he said simply. "You think this is his doing?" Elena asked. "I know it is," Cole replied. "He's not satisfied with diplomatic answers. He wants proof, gathered his own way." Elena frowned. "If his forces cross into monitored territory and encounter one of our defense patrols, then we'll handle it exactly as planned. Cole said calmly. No aggression, no unnecessary force, just enough to make our position clear, without giving him the confrontation he's hoping to provoke. Days later, deep within the quiet darkness of neutral space, a small human patrol vessel, similar in design to the Wraith-class ship demonstrated earlier, detected unfamiliar sensor activity along the edge of its patrol route. Lieutenant Mara Kimura, once again in command, studied the readings carefully. Multiple contacts, her sensor officer reported. Voth configuration. Unregistered through standard council channels. Mara frowned slightly. Distance? Closing slowly. They appear to be conducting a passive scan, not an active approach. Mara considered her options carefully. Protocol was clear: avoid unnecessary confrontation, but do not retreat from lawful patrol routes simply due to unofficial pressure. Maintain course, she said finally. Increase passive sensor output slightly, enough to confirm we're aware of their presence without escalating the situation. Aboard Vorak's scout vessel, Commander Issa studied the human ship's subtle sensor shift with growing unease. General, they've detected us, he reported. Their sensor output just increased, deliberately it seems, as a signal. Vorak leaned forward, studying the readings closely. A warning, he muttered. Calm, controlled, exactly as expected. Orders, sir? Vorak considered his next move carefully. Provoking direct conflict would be reckless, exposing his unauthorized operation to council scrutiny, and worse, testing humanity's defensive capabilities in a way that could easily backfire. But simply retreating, having gained nothing, felt equally unacceptable. Hold position, he said finally. Let's see how far their patience truly extends. For several tense minutes, both vessels remained motionless, watching each other silently across the vast emptiness of neutral space. Neither side made any aggressive movement, yet neither side retreated either, each waiting patiently to see who would act first. Finally, aboard the human patrol vessel, Mara made a quiet decision. Open a direct channel, she instructed her communications officer. Let's remove some of the guesswork. Moments later, a calm, clear message transmitted directly to Vorak's scout vessel. Unidentified Voth vessel, this is Lieutenant Kimura, United Earth Defense Command. You are currently observing a routine human patrol route. We have no interest in conflict, but we are aware of your presence and your intentions. Please clarify your purpose or withdraw peacefully. Vorak listened to the message carefully, impressed despite himself by the calm, measured tone, entirely lacking in the fear or aggression he had expected. Reply, he instructed Issa. Tell them we are conducting routine border observation, nothing more. The message was sent, though both sides understood clearly that it was, at best, only partially true. After a brief pause, Mara's voice returned, calm but firm. Understood. Please be advised, continued unofficial observation near this route may be misinterpreted as provocation, particularly given recent tensions following our demonstration to the Council. We would prefer to avoid unnecessary misunderstanding. Vorak studied the message closely, searching for any hint of bluff or weakness. He found none, only calm, careful diplomacy, backed by quiet, unspoken confidence. Withdraw, he finally ordered Issa reluctantly. We've learned what we can for now. As his scout vessel slowly retreated back toward council space, Vorak remained troubled, staring silently at the departing human patrol ship. They hadn't attacked. They hadn't panicked. They had simply calmly made their position clear, exactly as they had throughout every previous encounter. And somehow that calm confidence troubled him more than open aggression ever could have. When Vorak's unofficial patrol quietly returned to council territory, word of the encounter eventually reached High Speaker Mirren, delivered discreetly by concerned officers uncomfortable with the general's increasingly reckless behavior. Mirren summoned Vorak privately, her expression carefully controlled, though clearly displeased. General, she said firmly, explain to me exactly why an unofficial Voth patrol was discovered near humanity's declared border space without council authorization. Vorak considered lying briefly before deciding against it. Myron was far too experienced to easily deceive. "I sought answers, Speaker," he admitted. "Answers the Council itself has been unable or unwilling to obtain through diplomatic channels alone." "And did you find these answers?" Myron asked sharply. Vorak hesitated. "I found," he said slowly, "further confirmation that humanity possesses capabilities far beyond what they've formally revealed, yet continues to demonstrate remarkable restraint, despite ample justification for far more aggressive responses." Myron studied him closely. "Then perhaps, General, it's time you considered the possibility that humanity's restraint is not weakness, nor deception, but genuine, deliberate choice." Vorak remained silent for a long moment, clearly struggling internally with years of ingrained caution and suspicion. "Speaker," he said finally, "may I ask you something honestly?" Myron nodded. "Do you believe humanity would show similar restraint if the Council attempted to seize their technology by force?" Myron considered the question carefully before answering. "I believe," she said slowly, "we've already witnessed exactly how humanity responds to perceived threats. Calm, controlled, yet unmistakably firm. I have no reason to believe direct aggression would produce a gentler response." Vorak absorbed her words quietly, his earlier certainty slowly eroding beneath growing doubt. "Then perhaps," Myron continued gently, "it's time the Council stopped searching for reasons to fear humanity and instead considered the possibility of genuine partnership." Meanwhile, back on Earth, Ambassador Reyes received a private update regarding Vorak's unauthorized patrol, delivered quietly through secure diplomatic channels. Admiral Cole met him personally to discuss the implications. "Another test," Cole said simply. "Vorak's growing desperate." "Desperation often leads to mistakes," Daniel replied thoughtfully. "We should be cautious, but not alarmed. His actions, so far, remain more curious than genuinely threatening." "For now," Cole agreed. "But men like Vorak rarely stop testing boundaries until they've either confirmed their fears or exhausted every available option." Daniel considered this carefully. "Then perhaps," he said slowly, "it's time humanity offered clarity, rather than continued mystery. Enough to satisfy reasonable caution, without inviting further reckless testing." Cole studied him closely. "You're suggesting we reveal more?" "I'm suggesting," Daniel replied, "we finally explain why we built this technology in the first place. Not just what it does, but why it exists at all." Several days later, Ambassador Reyes requested another private session with High Speaker Myron, this time proposing something no human representative had yet offered: a full, honest account of humanity's early history among the stars, including the difficult lessons that led directly to Project Umbra's creation. Myron agreed immediately, sensing the significance of this offer. The meeting took place quietly, away from the pressures of the Grand Chamber, with only Myron, Vorak, and a handful of trusted advisors present. Daniel began his account calmly, without dramatics. "Decades ago," he said, "shortly after humanity first achieved interstellar travel, we encountered a species unfamiliar to Council records, a small, aggressive faction operating far beyond Council-monitored space. They approached humanity, not through diplomacy but through direct, calculated exploitation, viewing our unfamiliarity with galactic politics as an opportunity for easy conquest." Myron listened closely, her expression thoughtful. "What happened?" "They attacked several of our early colonies," Daniel continued, his voice steady despite the difficult memory. "Colonies with no real means of defense, believing peaceful intentions alone would protect them. It didn't. We lost thousands of lives before humanity even fully understood what was happening." The room grew silent, the weight of his words settling heavily among those present. "After that," Daniel continued, "humanity made a difficult decision. We would never again allow our peaceful intentions to be mistaken for defenselessness. We began Project Umbra shortly afterward, dedicating decades of research toward developing a defensive capability so significant no species would ever again view humanity as an easy target." Vorak listened intently, his earlier suspicion slowly transforming into something closer to genuine understanding. "And the dark matter technology," Mirren asked quietly, "was the result of that research?" "Yes," Daniel confirmed. "Discovered gradually, through decades of careful, dangerous experimentation. Many lives were lost during its development, scientists and engineers who believed deeply that humanity's survival depended on finding a way to defend itself without becoming the very aggressors we once feared." Mirren studied him closely. "Then this technology was never intended for conquest." "Never," Daniel confirmed firmly. "Humanity has held this capability for years now, quietly without ever using it against another species until circumstances finally forced its revelation." Vorak remained quiet for a long moment, clearly reflecting deeply on everything he'd just heard. Finally he spoke, his voice noticeably softer than before. "Ambassador," he said, "I owe you an apology. My suspicion, born from years of caution, may have unfairly clouded my judgment regarding humanity's true intentions." Daniel studied him carefully. "General, your caution wasn't unreasonable given the circumstances. Sudden power, especially power capable of what you witnessed, naturally invites suspicion. I don't fault you for seeking understanding, even through less than official methods." Vorak nodded slowly, appreciating the ambassador's understanding. Mirren, watching the exchange closely, finally spoke. "Then perhaps, Ambassador, it's time the Council formally reconsidered its approach toward humanity, not as a species to be feared or contained, but as a potential ally, worthy of genuine trust." Daniel offered a small, quiet smile. "Humanity would welcome that consideration, Speaker Myron." Yet even as trust slowly began to grow between humanity and key council leaders, one critical detail remained deliberately unspoken, carefully guarded even from Myron and Vorak. Aboard Earth's most secure defense installation, Admiral Cole reviewed a private, classified report, one detailing the true scale of Project Umbra's success. Not one dark matter vessel patrolled human space, not a handful. Dozens quietly stationed throughout human territory, and strategically positioned near key locations across neutral space, entirely undetected by Council sensors, until this very day. Cole studied the report carefully, fully aware of the delicate balance humanity now walked. Honesty sufficient to build trust, yet caution sufficient to protect against future threats, wherever they might arise. "They believe they finally understand us," he murmured quietly to Elena, standing beside him. Elena studied the classified fleet report herself, her expression thoughtful. "Do they?" she asked softly. Cole allowed himself a small, careful smile. "Not yet," he said. "Not completely. But soon they will." Far above Aurelia Prime, aboard his private quarters, General Vorak stood quietly at his window, gazing out at the stars, his thoughts heavy with newfound understanding and a growing realization. Humanity had revealed enough today to earn cautious respect. But something told him, deep instinct honed through years of military experience, that the full truth regarding humanity's true strength remained carefully, deliberately hidden still. "How much more?" he whispered quietly to himself, staring into the vast darkness of space. "Are you really hiding from us?" Somewhere far away, aboard dozens of silent, unseen vessels scattered quietly throughout the galaxy, humanity's true answer waited patiently, ready to be revealed only when the time was finally right. 1 month passed after Ambassador Reyes revealed humanity's difficult history to High Speaker Mirren and General Vorak. During that time, quiet diplomatic progress continued. Careful discussions, small agreements, growing trust built slowly through consistent honesty rather than dramatic gestures. But peace in the galaxy rarely stayed peaceful for long. Far beyond Council-monitored space, in a region known as the Karsus Belt, a different threat had been quietly gathering strength. The Malvorn Collective, a hostile faction the Council had clashed with occasionally over the past century, saw humanity's revealed technology not as a reason for caution but as a prize worth stealing. The Malvorn had never respected Council authority. They raided smaller colonies, stole technology wherever they found it, and answered only to their own ambitions. When news of humanity's dark matter capability reached their leadership, a decision was made quickly and quietly. If humanity possessed a weapon capable of erasing ships without a trace, the Malvorn intended to take it for themselves, by any means necessary. The first sign of trouble came without warning. A council outpost near the edge of neutral space close to territory Earth had quietly claimed as its own. Went dark, all communication cut off instantly, sensors reporting nothing before the signal vanished completely. High Speaker Mirren received the report within minutes, her expression growing serious as she reviewed the details. Malvorn raiders, General Vorak said grimly, studying the same report beside her. Their attack pattern matches previous incidents along the border. But why attack there specifically? Mirren asked. That outpost holds little strategic value. Vorak's expression darkened further as he cross-referenced the outpost's location against recent star charts. Because it sits directly along the route toward one of humanity's quietly monitored patrol zones, he said slowly. I believe, Speaker, the Malvorn aren't simply raiding for supplies this time. Myron's eyes widened slightly with understanding. They're searching for humanity's ships. Word reached Earth's Defense Command within hours, delivered urgently through Ambassador Reyes's secure diplomatic channel. Admiral Cole received the news calmly, though his expression grew serious as he reviewed the incoming reports. Malvorn raiders, moving directly toward our monitored border zones, Elena Voss confirmed, standing beside him. Their pattern suggests they're specifically hunting for one of our Wraith-class vessels. They want to capture the technology, Cole said quietly, or destroy it, to prevent anyone else from acquiring it first. Either way, Elena said, this puts our patrol crews directly at risk. Cole considered the situation carefully. Humanity had spent months carefully building trust through patience, honesty, and controlled demonstrations. But now, for the first time, actual conflict threatened to erupt, not from misunderstanding or suspicion, but from genuine hostile intent. Alert all patrol vessels within range of the Karsus belt, Cole ordered finally. Defensive posture only. No offensive action unless directly threatened. Meanwhile, aboard her Wraith-class patrol vessel, Lieutenant Mara Kimura received the warning just as 3 unfamiliar contacts appeared on her long-range sensors, moving quickly and aggressively toward her position. Malvorn configuration, her sensor officer confirmed, studying the approaching ships closely. 3 vessels heavily armed closing fast. Mara studied the readings carefully, her expression calm despite the clear danger. Options? We could retreat toward council space, Rahim suggested. Avoid confrontation entirely. Mara considered this briefly, before shaking her head. If we retreat, they'll simply follow, or worse, redirect their search toward other patrol routes, putting different crews at greater risk. Better we handle this here calmly, without unnecessary escalation. She opened a direct communication channel toward the approaching ships. Unidentified vessels, this is a human patrol ship operating within recognized neutral space. Please state your intentions, or withdraw immediately. No response came, only continued aggressive approach. Aboard the lead Malvorn raider, Commander Threx studied the small, unremarkable-looking human vessel ahead with open contempt. That's it, he said, laughing harshly to his crew. That small plane ship destroyed a council warship without a trace. His weapons officer nodded uncertainly. According to intercepted reports, yes, Commander, Threx sneered. Then let's see exactly how impressive this technology truly is once it's ours. Orders, Commander? Threx's eyes narrowed with cold determination. Disable their engines. Board the vessel. Take the technology by force if necessary. As the Malvorn ships closed rapidly, weapons charging visibly on their hulls, Mara made her final decision, calm, measured, but firm. Rahim, she said quietly, prepare defensive countermeasures. Minimum necessary force only. Understood, Rahim replied, his hands steady despite the growing tension. The first Malvorn ship fired without further warning, a bright energy blast streaking directly toward the human vessel. Mara's ship shifted smoothly, deploying a defensive field that absorbed the impact harmlessly, the strange dark matter hull barely reacting to the collision at all. Direct hit, Threx's weapons officer reported, confused. No visible damage. Threx's confidence wavered slightly, though his aggression remained undeterred. Continue firing, wear down their defenses. Aboard the human vessel, Mara studied the continuing assault calmly. Shields holding steady, her defense officer reported. No damage detected. They're not backing down, Rahim observed. Mara sighed quietly. Then it's time we convince them otherwise, without giving them exactly what they came here searching for. She gave a final, careful order. Target their forward weapon systems only. Minimum output, precise disable, no lethal force unless absolutely necessary. Understood, Rahim confirmed, quickly calculating the precise targeting solution. Moments later, a controlled, nearly invisible pulse of energy left the human vessel, striking each Malvorn ship's forward weapon systems with pinpoint accuracy. Instantly, all three raider vessels' offensive capabilities went completely silent, their weapons rendered instantly and harmlessly inoperative. Aboard the lead raider, Threx stared in disbelief as his weapon systems failed completely, without any visible damage to his ship's hull. What? What happened? He demanded. Weapon systems completely disabled, his officer reported, shaken. No damage elsewhere. It's as if they precisely removed only our ability to fight. Threx's earlier confidence crumbled rapidly into genuine fear. He hadn't expected mercy, he'd expected destruction, or at the very least, significant damage. Instead, the human vessel had demonstrated precise, controlled power, disabling his entire attack force without causing a single unnecessary casualty. A calm voice transmitted directly into his bridge. Malvorn vessels, your weapons are disabled. You are free to withdraw peacefully. Humanity has no wish for further conflict. Threx stared silently at his own reflection in the darkened viewscreen, humiliated, yet unmistakably alive. Unlike so many other unfortunate raiders who had underestimated stronger opponents in the past. Withdraw, he finally ordered quietly, his voice noticeably subdued. We're leaving. News of the encounter spread quickly through both Council and Malvorn territories, further reinforcing humanity's growing reputation, not as reckless aggressors, but as a species capable of overwhelming power, tempered by remarkable restraint and precision. High Speaker Mirren received the full report within hours, reviewing it carefully alongside General Vorak. Precise, controlled, non-lethal, Vorak muttered, studying the tactical details closely. They could have easily destroyed those raiders entirely, yet chose restraint instead. Exactly as they've demonstrated consistently since our very first encounter, Myron replied thoughtfully. Vorak considered this carefully, his earlier suspicion now almost entirely replaced by genuine respect. Perhaps, he said slowly, it's finally time the Council stopped questioning humanity's intentions and started considering what kind of relationship we truly wish to build with them. Mirren nodded in quiet agreement. I believe, General, that time has already arrived. Shortly afterward, Mirren called for a special historic session of the Grand Chamber, inviting representatives from every council race, along with Ambassador Reyes himself, to formally address humanity's place within galactic society. The chamber, once tense and suspicious during humanity's earlier summons, now carried a noticeably different atmosphere, cautious respect replacing outright fear or hostility. Myron stood before the gathered representatives, her voice clear and steady. Months ago, humanity revealed a technology capable of reshaping the balance of power across this galaxy. Since then, we have witnessed repeatedly restraint, honesty, and remarkable diplomatic patience, even when provoked directly by hostile forces. She turned toward Ambassador Reyes, standing calmly nearby. Ambassador, the Council formally invites humanity to join as full members, granted equal standing among the recognized species of this galaxy. A murmur spread through the chamber, though notably far calmer and more accepting than the reaction humanity had first received months earlier. Daniel stepped forward, addressing the assembled leaders directly. On behalf of humanity, I gratefully accept this invitation, he said. We do not seek to dominate this galaxy nor to threaten its peace. We seek only fair standing and mutual respect among equals. General Vorak, still carrying lingering traces of his earlier skepticism, spoke up from among the assembled generals. Ambassador, before this vote proceeds formally, might the Council finally learn the true extent of humanity's dark matter fleet? Trust, after all, flows both directions. Daniel considered the question carefully, glancing briefly toward Mirren before answering honestly. Very well, he said finally. The Council deserves complete honesty, especially now. He paused, allowing the tension in the room to build naturally before continuing. Humanity currently maintains 37 dark matter vessels, Daniel revealed calmly, quietly stationed throughout our territory and strategically positioned along key neutral space corridors, entirely undetected until circumstances required their revelation. The chamber fell utterly silent, shocked expressions spreading rapidly among the gathered representatives. 37? Vorak repeated, stunned. All this time, undetected by Council sensors? Yes, Daniel confirmed simply. Myron studied the reaction around her carefully, watching decades of assumed galactic superiority quietly crumble beneath this simple, honest revelation. And yet, she said slowly, breaking the heavy silence, not once, in all this time, did humanity use this advantage for conquest or intimidation. Never, Daniel confirmed firmly. These ships exist purely for humanity's defense, nothing more. The chamber remained quiet for a long moment, alien leaders exchanging uncertain, thoughtful glances, silently absorbing the true scale of humanity's carefully guarded strength. Finally, Dr. Aleth, the Sirion scientist who had personally witnessed humanity's technology firsthand, spoke quietly, breaking the tension. In all my years serving the Council, he said softly, I've never encountered a species capable of such overwhelming power, choosing instead such remarkable restraint. Mirren nodded slowly, agreeing completely. Nor have I, she admitted honestly. Humanity has proven repeatedly that true strength lies not merely in power itself, but in the wisdom and patience to wield it responsibly. She turned toward the assembled Council members, addressing them formally once more. I now call for a formal vote regarding humanity's full membership within this Council, as equals among us. The vote proceeded swiftly and unanimously. Every Council race, including the previously skeptical Voth delegation led personally by General Vorak, voting firmly in favor of humanity's inclusion. As applause slowly spread through the chamber, marking humanity's official acceptance into galactic society, Daniel Reyes stood quietly, reflecting on the long journey that had led humanity to this historic moment. High Speaker Mirren approached him personally afterward, extending her hand in a gesture she'd learned was customary among humans. Welcome officially to the Council of Stars, Ambassador Reyes, she said warmly. Daniel shook her hand firmly, offering a genuine smile. Thank you, Speaker Mirren. Humanity looks forward to building a lasting, mutually respectful relationship with the Council, and with every species represented here today. Later that evening, as celebrations quietly continued throughout Aurelia Prime, General Vorak approached Daniel privately, his expression thoughtful and sincere. Ambassador, he said quietly, I owe humanity and you personally a genuine apology. My suspicion nearly led to serious consequences humanity could have easily avoided through far less patient means. Daniel studied him closely before responding kindly. General, your caution came from experience, not malice. Given everything you've witnessed, suspicion was a reasonable response. What matters now is the future we choose to build together. Vorak nodded slowly, appreciating the ambassador's understanding. Then let us build it wisely, he said, learning from today's lessons, rather than repeating past mistakes. Agreed, Daniel replied warmly. As the historic day drew to a close, Daniel stood alone briefly on a quiet balcony overlooking Aurelia Prime's shimmering skyline, reflecting on humanity's remarkable journey, from a young, dismissed species to trusted, respected equals among the stars. He thought back to Admiral Cole's words spoken quietly months earlier, before this journey had even truly begun. Today, Daniel murmured softly to himself, echoing those words, humanity didn't just prove our strength, we proved our wisdom in using it. Far above him, scattered quietly throughout the galaxy, dozens of silent dark matter vessels continued their patient, unseen watch, no longer entirely hidden but still carrying humanity's quiet promise. Power held not for conquest, but for peace, patiently earned through honesty, restraint, and unwavering resolve. Back at Earth Central Command, Admiral Cole received final confirmation of the Council's unanimous vote. He allowed himself a small, satisfied smile, turning toward Dr. Elena Voss, who stood quietly beside him. "They finally understand," Elena said softly. Cole nodded slowly, watching the stars through the command center's wide viewport. "Completely," he agreed. The galaxy wanted to test humanity's strength. Instead, we simply showed them the true meaning of quiet, patient resolve, and in that silence we earned something far more valuable than fear. "What's that?" Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. Cole's smile widened slightly as he spoke the final words softly, almost to himself. "Respect," he said. And so, the Council of Stars, once certain of its own unquestioned superiority across the galaxy, learned a lesson it would never forget. Humanity, small and seemingly ordinary at first glance, had proven itself far more than capable, patient enough to endure suspicion, wise enough to choose restraint, and strong enough to earn respect without ever needing to prove it through unnecessary conflict. The Council of Stars had wanted to test humanity. Instead, humanity had quietly redefined what true strength looked like, in complete, dignified silence. The end.